Johnny Carson, the king of late-night television, was a master at handling the biggest celebrities and their egos, but even he had his breaking point. You might think that The Tonight Show was all fun and games, but for some guests, crossing the line with Johnny meant a one-way ticket to permanent exile. These weren't just small-time actors. We're talking about the biggest names in Hollywood, stars who thought their fame gave them immunity, but it didn't. 7 celebrities crossed Carson's line, and their visits to his show would end in an unforgivable ban. Some of these banishments were shocking, others were jaw-dropping. Some guests thought they could get away with everything. But Johnny Carson wasn't just a talk show host, he was a gatekeeper. And when you crossed him, you were done. Maybe you'll be surprised by who ended up on the blacklist. First one has Don Rickles banned for destructive behavior. Don Rickles was a legend in comedy, known for his sharp tongue and ability to insult everyone in the room. But The Tonight Show wasn't just another stage for his machine gun insults. It was Johnny Carson's domain. And while the audience loved Rickles' brutal humor, Johnny had a line he wasn't willing to let anyone cross. In 1976, Rickles was guest hosting The Tonight Show during Carson's vacation. But instead of playing it cool, Rickles took things to another level. He wasn't just poking fun at guests. He was ripping apart props, disrespecting the crew, and even messing with Johnny's personal items. The last straw, he smashed a cherished walnut cigarette box, a gift from a stagehand who'd once saved Carson from a studio fire. At first, Carson played it off with a joke, stepping onto the set and acting as if he was ready to take care of Rickles' mess. But behind the scenes, it was a different story. Carson's patience had worn thin. This wasn't just about comedy, it was about respect. From that point on, Rickles was banned from ever guesting on The Tonight Show again. The man who could insult anyone in sight had finally gone too far for Carson. His career on the show ended, not with a scandal or drama, but with Johnny simply saying, "No more, you've crossed the line." And just like that, The Tonight Show blacklist was one name longer. In the second, we have Fred Rogers banned for pacing problems. Fred Rogers, the beloved host of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, was a man of kindness, patience, and calm. His gentle, thoughtful demeanor had made him a national treasure. But when he appeared on The Tonight Show in 1980, something went terribly wrong. The pacing of late-night TV simply wasn't made for him. Imagine this: Johnny Carson, the king of late-night wit, ready to deliver quick jokes and sharp comebacks, sitting opposite Fred Rogers, who answered every question with a long, drawn-out pause and a carefully measured response. While the audience politely waited for Rogers to finish speaking, the show's rhythm came to a screeching halt. The timing was all off. Johnny, always the professional, tried to ease into the conversation, even cracking jokes like, "I wore my sneakers in your honor, Fred." But Rogers, with his soothing Pittsburgh rhythm, simply replied, "That's very thoughtful, Johnny. Sneakers can help us feel ready to play." The audience didn't know how to respond. Was it a joke? Was it a statement? They were confused. Despite the mild chuckles, the tension in the studio was palpable. Fred Rogers would never be invited back. Not because of a lack of respect, but because in the fast-paced world of late-night television, his gentle pace just didn't fit. And so, Fred Rogers, despite being one of the most cherished TV personalities of all time, earned himself a permanent spot on Carson's blacklist. Third, we have Wayne Newton banned for physical threats. Wayne Newton, known as Mr. Las Vegas, was a star who took his image very seriously. But even Johnny Carson had his limits when it came to respecting boundaries. It all started with a simple joke. Carson, known for his sharp wit, cracked a light-hearted comment about Newton's hair needing photosynthesis. The audience erupted in laughter, but Newton? He didn't laugh. In fact, it wasn't long before Carson discovered just how thin-skinned the Las Vegas legend really was. In 1980, Newton, already upset by the joke, stormed into the Tonight Show studio uninvited. He wasn't there to chat or joke, he was there with one goal: to confront Johnny Carson. Security footage later showed Newton striding through the hallways, fist clenched and silk shirt unbuttoned. It wasn't the kind of entrance anyone expected from a man known for his charisma on stage. He barged into Carson's office, where he confronted the host directly, saying, "These jokes about me will stop, or I'll kick your ass." Johnny, known for his cool demeanor, didn't flinch. He didn't need to raise his voice or get physical, he just acted. He called security immediately and made one thing clear: Wayne Newton was never allowed back on the show again. And just like that, Newton was permanently banned. No public fuss, no media frenzy, just a quietly executed blacklist that would last until the end of Carson's reign. What did this ban teach Hollywood? That no one, not even the biggest stars in Vegas, could intimidate Carson on his own turf. For Johnny, the line was clear. No one could threaten him and expect to stay in his studio. The Tonight Show was Johnny's domain, and if you couldn't take a joke, you weren't welcome. In the fourth, we have Chevy Chase banned for arrogance. Chevy Chase was the breakout star of Saturday Night Live, and by 1978, he was Hollywood's new darling. His comedic timing, his energy, it was all fresh and exciting. But when he made his return to The Tonight Show, it wasn't just his humor that seemed out of place. It was his attitude. Chase, having just experienced massive box office success, strutted onto Carson's stage, acting like he had already claimed his spot at the top. Instead of easing into the usual banter with Johnny, he decided to open his segment with a boast. $10 million in just 3 days. Pretty impressive, huh? Johnny smiled, but there was a clear shift in the air. As Chase continued to brag, not just about his new movie Foul Play, but about his own superior status, Carson grew more and more distant. When Johnny tried to steer the conversation back to the film, Chase ignored him completely. Instead, he started mocking Carson's golf game, suggesting that he could outdrive him and even out-host him. The audience could feel the tension. What was once lighthearted banter had turned into a direct challenge to Johnny's reign. After all, Carson had built The Tonight Show for 15 years. No one was going to disrespect that legacy. The next day, Carson had made his decision. Chevy Chase was banned from ever returning to The Tonight Show. The message was simple. Don't bite the hand that made you famous. Chase had crossed the line and there would be no coming back. For Hollywood, this was a wake-up call. Fame doesn't grant immunity. And Carson, he made it clear that arrogance had no place on his stage. In the fifth, we have Bob Hope banned for scripted rigidity. Bob Hope was a Hollywood legend, a man who could make people laugh with just a look. But when he stepped onto The Tonight Show in 1978, it wasn't his charm that earned him a permanent spot off the guest list. It was his rigidity. Hope, a man who had been the face of television specials for decades, arrived at the studio with a detailed packet, index cards filled with jokes, suggested questions, and even preferred camera angles. Carson, the king of improvisation, was known for his ability to pivot in any direction, keeping the audience on their toes. But Hope, he was stuck on the script. It didn't take long for Carson to notice. Hope, instead of engaging in the usual back and forth with the host, stuck rigidly to his prepared material, ignoring Carson's attempts to veer off script. Carson tried to be patient at first, but when Hope repeatedly consulted his cards, delivering punchlines with mechanical precision, Carson's frustration was palpable. The breaking point came when Hope, in the middle of a segment, turned the conversation into an ad for Texaco, mentioning the brand 3 times within 7 minutes. Carson, who prided himself on authenticity and spontaneity, had had enough. He turned to producers backstage and gave them an ultimatum. If I have to sit through another one of these infomercial-style interviews, I'm walking off the show. That night, Carson's team quietly banned Bob Hope from returning to The Tonight Show. Despite his legend status, Hope's inability to adapt to the spontaneous nature of the show was a deal-breaker. For Carson, it wasn't just about being funny. It was about being real. And for Hope, a man who could charm millions with his rehearsed routines, that wasn't enough. Finally, we have Charlton Heston banned for monopolizing airtime. Charlton Heston was the epitome of Hollywood royalty. His towering presence and legendary roles in films like Ben-Hur made him a household name. But when he appeared on The Tonight Show in 1987, something went terribly wrong. Carson had always been about the rhythm, quick questions, sharp answers, a steady flow that kept the audience engaged. But Heston, he treated the interview like his personal lecture. When Carson asked a simple question about his movie career, Heston launched into a 5-minute monologue about his childhood, his experiences on the ranch, his theatrical training at Yale, and his artistic philosophies. Carson, ever patient, tried to steer the conversation back on track, but Heston ignored every subtle cue. The studio band waited idly as the interview dragged on, and the energy in the room began to sink. Carson's usual upbeat demeanor started to fade, replaced by a quiet frustration. He wasn't just hosting a show anymore. He was a captive audience to Heston's self-indulgent storytelling. By the end of the segment, the numbers were in. Nielsen ratings showed a sharp decline in viewership during Heston's lengthy speech. It was clear the audience wasn't interested in Heston's monologues. Carson had tolerated it as long as he could, but this was the tipping point. In the days that followed, Carson made the call. Charlton Heston, no matter how big his name was, would never be invited back. Carson wasn't about to let any guest monopolize the stage, no matter their Hollywood pedigree. As the host, Carson had the unique ability to keep everyone on their toes, whether it was with a perfectly timed joke, a surprising twist, or his effortless charm. And there were some stars who thought they could push him too far. Johnny Carson wasn't just the king of late-night television. He was a gatekeeper. He built The Tonight Show into an institution, one that had a rhythm, a pace, and a set of standards. And if you weren't willing to play by the rules, you didn't get to sit in the chair. The 6 celebrities we've talked about weren't banned for petty reasons. They didn't get blacklisted because of a mistake here or there. They crossed lines that Johnny Carson wasn't willing to ignore. Whether it was physical threats, fraud, arrogance, or just flat-out disrespect, Carson knew that his show had to maintain its integrity. And when you didn't respect that, there were consequences. For all the glitz, the glam, and the laughs, Carson's Tonight Show was a carefully crafted balance of spontaneity, professionalism, and genuine respect for the art of late-night television. And if you messed with that, you were out. So what do you think? Which of these bans shocked you the most? Do you think Johnny Carson was right to enforce such strict boundaries? Or do you believe some of these guests deserved a second chance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story from Hollywood's golden age. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe to follow the secrets of the biggest icons in history.